like in all things, I have a 5-minute presentation and I have a 25-minute presentation. So I'm going to start with a 5-minute presentation, and then y'all tell me if you want a 25-minute presentation. Some of this requires, I think, a little more context than maybe what we've given so far. So let me just back up a little bit, and then I'll come to the question at issue, which is the fact that Brad Smith's entity, and I'm just going to refer to it as Silver Comet, has sued Paulding County. I want to go back to the adoption of Resolution 1501 for a minute, because that's when this board decided to officially withdraw the county support for the proposed commercialization of the airport. And if you recall, what happened within a few days of that is that the airport authority sent to the FAA a letter that said, we don't care what the county says about this. We want the FAA to continue to process that Part 139 application. And I would submit to this board that that decision, that one decision, is the reason that I'm up here today. It's the reason that this county has incurred all the legal fees and expenses that it has incurred for the last 2.5 years or so dealing with this issue.
The decision by the Paulding County Airport.
By the airport authority to send the letter to the FAA saying we do not want that 139 application withdrawn.
Okay.
Because that set in motion everything that's happened since then. That is the reason, for example, that the City of Atlanta filed the informal complaint with the FAA on the deed restriction, and that's the reason we were hired to begin with. And the airport authority never sent that letter. The City of Atlanta would have never filed its informal complaint, and my firm would have never been retained, presumably, to respond to it because it never would have existed to begin with. What we got from the FAA in response was, well, we're going to consider the 139 application as remaining pending until there's some sort of litigation solution to this thing. And you may recall that the second task my firm was asked to do was to respond to the FAA's request for an opinion letter as to the effect of Resolution 1501 in light of the fact that the airport authority wanted the application to move forward. So again, that was item number 2 that was set in motion by the airport authority's request that this application remain pending. And so we ultimately, because the FAA would not allow for the withdrawal of the 139 application or would treat it as remaining pending until there was some sort of litigation resolution of this, we filed a declaratory judgment action, a simple declaratory judgment action with the airport authority on the other side, simply asking the court to answer this one question, which is who, as between the county and the airport authority, has the right to move forward with the proposed commercialization of the airport. In other words, can one party do it without the other, or does it require the consent of both parties? And we did that because the FAA said, we're not going to treat that application as having been withdrawn. We're going to treat it as remaining pending until we get some sort of judicial determination on this issue. And that's when we move forward with that lawsuit. Now, in response to that, Silver Comet intervened in the lawsuit. They actually filed another lawsuit in federal court. They removed the state court case to federal court, and they greatly expanded the scope of the litigation that we were involved in. But as part of that, Silver Comet asserted a claim against the county for interfering with its contract with the airport authority. So now we're defending a claim that's been brought by Silver Comet. In response to that, we went ahead and filed a claim against Silver Comet on the bond issue, saying you're responsible for the repayment of these bonds. You're not paying these bonds. We'd like for you to either be ordered to pay those bonds, or we want damages for the fact that you haven't paid those bond payments that you promised to make. So the question then is, why can't we just quit? Why can't we just let all of this go? Well, we can't let it go because, in part, we don't control it. We also can't let it go because it leaves the county exposed to claims for damages. So let me just walk through about 4 reasons why we don't have the option of just quitting. First of all, as I mentioned, the FAA is treating the Part 139 application as pending. And it has communicated to us in writing that it will not decide the pending application until the litigation is resolved. And I would submit to you that if we withdraw from the lawsuit, then that opens the door for the FAA to make a decision on the 139 application that they have told us remains pending. So that's reason number 1, we can't just quit. Reason number 2 is, yes, we were successful in the trial court in getting Silver Comet's claims against the county dismissed. But those claims, that dismissal is up on appeal right now. And so quitting means that we leave ourselves potentially defenseless in the claim that Silver Comet is asserting against us should they prevail on appeal. And I just remind everybody, their claim at least was for millions of dollars. So we can't just leave the county exposed to a claim for millions of dollars.
May I interrupt for a minute? So
Sure.
If we drop that lawsuit, then the judges are going to see that as we're admitting guilt.
Well, what would it depends on what happens on the appeal. But if their claim were to be reinstated on appeal, and then it was sent back to the trial court for further consideration, what it would mean is we would no longer be defending against that claim. So essentially, we would, by default, they would get the judgment that they're seeking. So we can't just stop.
And probably be back and forth arguing about how much we'd actually owe.
That's right.
Hot off the press.
The third issue is, as y'all have pointed out, our claim against Silver Comet for the bond payments remains pending. So quitting means that we are giving up on our efforts to recover the money we've already paid on behalf of the bond payments we've already made, that our position is we weren't obligated to make, and future payments that the board may be prepared to make. So it essentially just means eating $3 million or whatever the number is. And then the fourth thing is, again, the city of Atlanta has not only filed its informal complaint with the FAA, they have also filed a lawsuit raising the same issues. So quitting in that context means that the city of Atlanta prevails. So I'd like to summarize by saying this. There are 3 things, in my opinion, that are directly responsible for all of the litigation fees and expenses and costs this county has incurred in this matter. The first is the airport authority's refusal to allow the Part 139 application to be withdrawn. The second is Silver Comet's intervention in what was a very simple lawsuit involving us and the airport authority, that all we were asking the judge to do was just say, yes, either one party can move forward without the other, or it requires the consent of both parties. But their decision to intervene in that lawsuit exponentially expanded the scope of the litigation and required the expenditure of the vast majority of our legal fees and expenses. And then the third thing, and y'all touched on this, but I want to emphasize that we spent a lot of time and money in response to the airport authorities going and getting a quitclaim deed from the outgoing chairman of the board days before he was to leave office, in direct contravention to instructions that the FAA had given us. And we spent months and months and months, once the FAA became aware of that, trying to come up with a joint corrective action plan, again, at their direction, in order to address this transfer of the 163 acres. So I don't know the exact percentage, but I would submit that probably 95% of the legal fees and expenses this county has incurred, at least since our involvement in September 2015, have been a direct result of one of those three things: either the refusal to allow the 139 application to be withdrawn, Silver Comet's intervention in the lawsuit, or the decision to go behind closed doors and to get a quick claim deed executed for that 163 acres. That's probably more than 5 minutes, but that is at least my 5-minute presentation. But I can go into more detail about the chronology and all that, how we got here if you need me to.